In the mid-1800s, thousands of immigrants came to the U.S. to provide labor. By 1870, there were roughly 63,000 Chinese in the United States alone. Except that the Chinese wouldn't be wanted for long. They'd be left out after the Chinese Exclusion Act, but we'll get to that later.
The first station of immigration to open was Ellis Island in 1892, which was located in the upper New York Harbor near the Statue of Liberty. Over time, the Ellis Island spread over 3 islands with numerous structures, including hospitals and contagious disease wards.
About 40% of the U.S. citizens can trace their ancestry to those who came into Ellis Island.
Immigrants had to go through medical inspection before actually entering the U.S. If you were thought to have a mental or physical illness, you would be sent home immediately without any further considerations.
Immigrant women were usually frightened by the clinical routines. Most women had never been touched by a man other than their husband, so being examined by a male doctor could result in a traumatic experience.
Stairs from the top
or from the bottom.
I don't come to America to wash stairs.
Oh, yeah.
American laborers resented the Chinese people because they were willing to work for cheaper wages, so Americans accused the Chinese of monopolizing jobs.
U.S. officials hoped to deport as many as possible by asking obscure questions about Chinese villages and family histories that immigrants would have trouble answering correctly.
If I mow the lawn on a Tuesday and my husband mows the lawn on a Wednesday, and then we go out to eat on a Thursday, how many Chinese villages does it take to bomb the U.S.?
25.
Angel Island seemed to be running smoothly until 1940. A fire destroyed the administration building, so the U.S. government abandoned it as an immigration station. The Chinese Exclusion Acts eventually were repealed, and over the years, Chinese have settled in every U.S. city.
Now, it was hard enough for immigrants to get into the U.S., and after all that hard work, you'd think life's great in the melting pot. It wasn't. Immigrants still faced discrimination.
Immigrants were seen as inferior and often could not find work just because they were immigrants, meaning they often worked in sweatshops, factories, and places with general health hazards to its workers.
These hazardous work conditions guide us to our next topic, work hazards in factories, where most immigrants worked.
Factory conditions were poor and in some cases deplorable. Lack of government regulation led to unsafe and unhealthy work sites. By 1900, industrial accidents killed 35,000 workers each year and maimed at least 500,000 others, and numbers continued to rise.
In order to save money, many employers hired women and children to work in factories because they would work for lower wages than men. Some women were paid as little as $6 per week, a sum much lower than a male would have received.
By 1900, roughly 1.7 million children worked in factories in southern cotton mills. Children who operated looms throughout the night had cold water thrown in their faces to keep them awake.
To make matters worse, after a long day of hazardous work and low pay, you couldn't go home to a warm, inviting home, just because most factory laborers lived in the tenement houses.
Now imagine a tenement building was basically an apartment, except you shared it with 3 other families. Your water pump is outside and often frozen in the winters. Your housemates never really bathed. There's no ventilation or light, so basically your house smelled like unwashed, steaming human sod. And you only had 1 bathroom, and it was outside. And you shared it with everyone else in the tenement. So now when you think your life sucks, just remember, you're an American. You're not being discriminated for where your ancestors came from. You're not working in dangerous factories, your wage is more than $6 a week, and you don't come home to the sweet smell of human sog.